Hey there guys, hope all is well. Shanahan here. Today I'm going to look into mastering this track with an OTT compressor. I know it's a very common compressor in a lot of people's workstation here. It's been used a tremendous amount for a reason. You can use the OTT on numerous amount of things like busing, your individual channels, and your master channel. I've been asked a few times, is it appropriate to use it on your mastering? And to answer that quickly, absolutely. You think it's a multi-band compressor, so it's just as if you were throwing on, fab filters, multi-band there, or waves, whatever it is you guys use. You can use it on your master channel to compress and give an overall glued feeling to your master channel. But again, with that being said, really start looking into grouping your stuff, guys, when you're mastering, and put it on the group bus, because then if you compress each thing individually just lightly, very, very subtle, you really don't need that tremendous of amount compression on that master output. So keep that in mind too. But I'm going to use this song I've used a couple times specifically because I think it has an appropriate mix down. It has a mix down that's well done, so that makes it a little bit easier on the master channel. So with that being said, guys, I've said it before, but make sure your mix down is really polished before you even get to this stage. I've said it 1,000 times, but if your mix is not done correctly to your liking and doesn't almost feel mastered already, then you can't really just fix it on your master channel. That's not really how it works. You got to go down to your mix down and make that sound good. But I'm just going to use this track here for the example. Okay, so let's go to our master output here. And I don't need, as far as overall output, volume-wise, I don't need, and let's just bring this down here, the depth. I don't need an overwhelming amount of output gain because I've already mixed the track relatively loud. If you guys look at my metering here, this is really being pushed in the red as is. I'm already peaking a tremendous amount, and to some producers that's a no-no. Some guys don't agree with that, but that's my way of producing. I can push stuff through the red and peak out a little bit as long as everything's clean and clear in the mix, which is what I feel like I have done here. Now let's go over to the OTT real quick here for anyone that's unfamiliar. If you guys look at these four knobs here, think of your depth as your dry wet. You guys will hear the noise come through. That's all the way full. That's because my upward is pretty high up here. We'll get to that in a second. Now the time, just think of that as simply as another compressor as your release time. The longer it's held out or shorter it's held out, more punchy, etc. This is going to be your release time, and then self-explanatory here, input and output gain for your volume. Now down here you guys can see we're getting our multi-band section, so we can see our highs, we can see our mids, and we can see our lows all in one spot here. So it's giving you a reading for each multi-band, which is very key. Now, if you guys look closely here in what we want to just call the visual section here, this middle line in this section here is going to be your threshold for each band. So when you're peaking over this section, we are surpassing the threshold for each band. So we're way over that now. Now down here with your upward and downward, you guys can see this is an upward and downward compressor. So that could be a little bit confusing to anyone that's not really into compression. First time I learned about it years ago, I didn't have a clue what the upward downward even meant. But if you guys look at the two knobs down here, pretty straightforward. Your upward is going to be, to me as I define it, is more of a hype volume knob, which is going to bring out a ton of noise. So if I were to bring this down and bring my dry wet up, you're not going to hear that noise. It's pretty clean. But if I have this upward up a little bit here, this is pretty much a lot, you're going to hear noise come through, which is going to hype the entire master. Which to me, when I'm kind of mastering the track or using this on a band or bus, whatever I may be using it on, I don't want too much of that hype noise coming through. I think it's a little bit, you need to be very gradual with that knob and very, very subtle, so be careful with that. I usually start that at 0 and slowly kind of work it up. Now my downward is going to be where we're going to get a lot of our volume and overall compressed feeling from. It basically is going to control the peaks. If you think about another generic compressor that we have, when we throw on another compressor and we're squashing the peaks, think about that here. The more you do that, the more you're pushing down on the peaks and the transients. Those will get reduced. So that's what you're doing with downward compression there. So let's kind of play this on the master. I dial it in a little bit with the dry wet. I do a little bit of a long time here, the release time, and I basically find a happy medium of the track, obviously getting a little bit louder, but I want that light compression to give it an overall glued feeling. So let's start messing around with that. So a pretty big difference there. If you guys listen again, I just A-B'd that, but listen to, we have a tiny amount of gain that I'm going to adjust here, maybe 1 or 2 dB, but I want you guys to really listen to the crisp, kind of rounded off feeling to this entire track. It's still got its clean mix. We really need to make that important here, guys, that this mix has to remain as clean as it was. If you guys are putting this on to kind of fight the mix down that wasn't working or needed work, this is not what it's for. Go back to your mix down and adjust things individually if they're not sounding right. This is kind of the cherry on top. You guys are probably saying, what the heck's going on here? I'm peaking 8. That's because I have the gain tool on for the purpose of the video, so don't pay attention to that. Obviously that's not a true reading. I'm just having the gain volume lower, so the video is working out here. But you guys can hear the slight noise. Again, I don't want too much of that, so I'm going to bring that back. Again, it's more of like a hype pushing knob. I don't use that as much as the downward compression. So let's hear that A beat again. Now, prime example of overcompressed. Listen, let's bring the noise down. Listen to the back end. When I stop the song, listen to the sound almost come back up. It almost pushes back up a little bit. Hear how that volume got louder when I stopped that? That is a prime example of overcompressed. I've heard it a million times, and I wish I didn't. It's unfortunately when we get carried away with compression, because we like utilizing it to reduce the peaks and kind of give that nice warm feeling sometimes and a glued feeling, but a lot of times stuff is overcompressed. So really pay attention to your depth. In other words, your dry wet knob. We want to be super, super subtle with compression. So it's getting a much warmer overall feeling if we just play this from the break with it on. And without it. So to me, that is a huge A to B or even A to Z difference. We really maximized the clarity of the high end. Again, I'm sorry, I'll say it again, but that mix down has to be relatively done, guys. Please really focus on your mix down. It's, to me, in my opinion, the mix of your track is more important than the master, because specifically you can make your mix down sound mastered without much on your master channel. It's definitely doable. I've done it in many songs. Not saying it's the easiest thing in the world, but put the time and effort into that mix down and give the master channel a little bit of this OTT just to kind of round everything off and put the cherry on top. All right, guys, that is a wrap for today. That's the OTT multi-band. It's an upward downward compressor. Please use it, guys. I know you guys probably already have it in your sessions and messing around with it. If you're new to it, definitely make it your new friend. It can be an incredible tool. Very, very simple to use, but it can be an incredible tool for your productions, especially the master channel. But give it a try, guys. Let us know if you have any questions, and we'll catch you guys soon.